Dang it. Hi, Bob Knote. On this episode of the Camp Chaos Chronicles, we're going to be taking a look at a piece of classic machinery, the independent rear suspension unit on a Jaguar XJS. Now, it seems like a good time to do this because I took the IRS unit out of old Tex because he had some issues. The issue being that you really don't know your old car until you take it on an extended road trip like we did to Colorado. And while it had a few minor leaks when we left, the floodgates opened on those leaks by the time we got back, so we had to deal with them. Let's first of all take a look at the layout of the classic Jaguar independent rear suspension unit. First of all, this was produced first back in the 1961 Jaguar E-Type, and it was quite a sensation back at the time. It was independent rear suspension. You can see that right here we've got a lower control arm, and the upper control arm actually was the axle shaft, and the two are connected together by the hub carrier, and then you've got dual shocks and springs on each side. It was located in the car by these two rubberized mounts here that the frame channel or the frame rail runs through, and also these trailing arms right here. Now you notice that everything is really heavily mounted in rubber. You've got two big biscuits right here, rectangular things that are bonded to the two sides of the mount. You've got a big rubber donut here, you got rubber there. The reason being that the lower control arm moves like this. The trailing arm, which locates it fore and aft, actually goes through an arc like this, up and down like that. And they're in conflict with each other. So you have to have all these heavy rubber bushings and mounts in place in order to provide some compliance between the two. But this unit was used in one form or another up until the mid-1990s in the Jaguar XJS, and it was also used in the XJ and of course the E-Type throughout the length of its career. Now the brake setup on these cars is a point of controversy between Jaguar owners. Some of the owners like the fact that they're located inboard on the axle shafts, mounted directly to the differential, and thereby giving less unsprung weight and improving handling and that sort of thing. A lot of people say, you know, these things really should be outboard where they can get more air and stay cooler. And the fact is that there's many people that have taken XJ40 hub carriers and rear brake setups and mounted them on their XJS, and they work fine. Nothing wrong with that. Now if you look here, we got a couple of arms that stick down, or levers, and when you pull the parking brake cable, they are pulled together like this. Now these are the parking brake setups right here. They're actually located directly on the caliper. And if we spin this around so you can see things a little bit better, we can see that we've got the calipers up here. A couple of brake pads right there. And another one of the reasons why I'm pulling this out is that right here on this side, one of the brake pads for the parking brake has come delaminated. Might not be able to see it real well down there, but there is a gap right about there. And if you lose one of those, then the parking brake obviously doesn't work. So I need to put a new set of pads in there. Now the reason that we pulled this out primarily was the fact that this output shaft or differential had a leak develop in it prior to us getting the car. And this one was dry, but on the trip, this one got real bad, and this one started to get much worse. So we need to replace the seals and the bearings on the outputs of the differential. Another thing that we need to do, if we've got the time, is we've got these rubber mounts here, which typically are problems as far as them breaking, because when you have the car up on a hoist, this whole unit, which weighs about 500 pounds, is hanging down from these rubber mounts. And also they're subject to all that movement as the suspension works up and down. And these mounts that go to the chassis rail or the frame rail are real susceptible to splitting and separation. These are not. I don't see any real problem here. Those are still firmly attached. This one right here, if you can see up here, actually on both sides, it's beginning to separate, and it's gone back about a third of the way across the bonded surface right here, if you can see that. Okay, the problem there, and I've also got one on this side that needs to be replaced as well. Both front ones need to be replaced. They're identical. So the problem is that when they start to separate, the bond area gets smaller, and the faster the separation will accelerate along the edge, particularly if you have this car up on jack stands for a long time. These mounts right here are taking all that load, and that's 500 pounds of steel and aluminum right here. Another thing that you want to check are these mounts right here. And if you can see right there, if you move this up and down, and you can see that separation there, okay, that is going to fail. That needs to be replaced. These are the same thing, although it's, if you can move them up and down like this, yeah, you can, I see some surface cracks here, but I'm not all that concerned about that. That still looks pretty good. And then the same thing on the other side. Now you'll notice that up in front here there's a lot of oil, and you might think that that's due to this seal right here leaking, the pinion seal, but if you look closely you'll see that the pinion seal itself is dry. There's no grease on that, so that's not leaking. Where did that oil come from? Well, somebody, when they were putting a quart of oil in, got a phone call, got distracted when it was all over, closed the hood, and didn't put the oil filler cap on, and then drove the car for 60 miles. That's where that oil came from. So the reason that I got this out here right now is that I'm going to be pressure washing this and doing all this maintenance work, maybe do a little painting, and then put it back in Old Tex, and then take our next road trip. So there it is. The good old-fashioned classic Jaguar IRS unit. Now, if you like these videos, you want to see more of these where we take a closer look at some of the assemblies in the car and maybe look at some of the maintenance aspects of it, why don't you leave a comment and tell us specifically what you're looking for, and maybe we'll do something like that. So we'll see you the next time on the Camp Chaos Chronicles.